I got myself a tainted. She rockin' with a ooze, yeah. My baby, she the greatest. She rockin' with the truth, yeah. Tainted, do your thing, shorty, see for my. Tainted looking bad, she ain't even gotta try. Feel some type of way when I'm staring up in your eyes. Shorty coming over, baby, we can get it right, yeah. Tainted, oh lele. More, baby girl, you're the one. If I got a nalo, I could work little wow. I will keep a bullet, I'm not that type of solid. Low love from my own sunga ekumau ele uma. She my lover, baby, there ain't no other. Feeling on your body, smooth like cocoa butter. Hey, said you my brown skin baby. Ha, you my island lady. But let me take you to the mainland. Girl, you better be my main thing. Rockin' and rollin', you know the real fun. 1K the coldest, you know the real one, no, real one. You rockin' with a real one, the real one. I got myself a tainted. She rockin' with a ooze, yeah. My baby, she the greatest. She rockin' with the truth, yeah. Tainted, do your thing, shorty, see for my. Tainted looking bad, she ain't even gotta try. Feel some type of way when I'm staring up in your eyes. Shorty coming over, baby, we can get it right, yeah. Tainted, oh lele. Tainted.
Shooter, collabo with the Uso 1K Tui. You call it Tene Aulele, but me call it Fui. Loka o ilongi loko pese fale pui. Pui the way you back it up, make me wanna say we au mai lo lima. Sa rose kasi siva, fa akamilo e mafusi pe a engi nifa. A inga fa alongo, le ngu ufai se fongo. Mafai ile e kale sia e kamai lo le longo. Ele ya masisi falu a inga ole wo. E pei ole asa ele ya yo se fofo. Ola mai malale le pese la au koko. Ai afai e ke kofale ai se pisa le ai foi o se pa ole asa ukala. Afai e pongi sase o ke fa malama lama. Afai e ke malili o ke fa mafanga fanga lilia. Eva ile po masinga. Awake ke popole baby girl for your wing.
How can you not fall in love with a girl like her? Whoa, yeah. Shawty, she a 10, yeah. Beauty is bright as the sun. Let she light up my world. Whoa, she set me on fire. I feel it deep in my bones, and I feel so alive. I got you right by my side. Is you ready to ride? To rock this thing with me. She rockin' with a ooze, yeah. My baby, she the greatest. She rockin' with the truth, yeah. Tainted, do your thing, shorty, see for my. Tainted looking bad, she ain't even gotta try. Feel some type of way when I'm staring up in your eyes. Shorty coming over, baby, we can get it right, yeah. Tainted, oh lele. Tainted.
Well, telephone welcome again. I am Salis Olaita.
And I am Isaiah Vimoto.
And we are your hosts for Tour Talk. As a reminder, Tour Talk is a mentorship program, and it's a mentorship platform providing relevant and up-to-date information. So it's great to be with you again. And we're back on track with our leadership series. And we do have a great show for you today. But before we go to the rest of the show, let's pause for some shout-outs. How about that, Isaiah?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it, Sally. Yeah, there's so much stuff going on. July's came and gone, and now we're in August. So pretty soon we'll be in the Christmas time season. But there's a few things, Sally, that's on my mind, and I think last show I mentioned about our 12th annual Samoan Culture Week here in Tacoma, Washington. That was last week, and boy, I tell you, the whole week of festivity there's so much that went on, and it was just kudos to the team, the Antilua and all the staff and the committee and volunteers for putting that up. It was a great event, from Sunday till Saturday. Really. So for those not familiar, not aware, it happens every year in the end of July. So put on your schedule, calendar, and maybe come out next year and check us out. So the second thing, I thought about, was we've all watched the news and saw the drone strike that killed one of the Al Qaeda leader. We're not trying to publicize him, but really, the point I want to bring out is, kudos to our intelligence team. The tactical patient. Really these guys, the hard work that they've done over the years. I mean, it took this long just to actually make this happen. So kudos again, just congratulate and applaud the effort and the skills of our intelligence community. So then the other thing I want to is on my mind, as I read in the article a couple of days ago about how officers and the officers are opting out from accepting battalion command in the reserve force. I mean, in the Army Reserve, not in Army Reserve, which is kind of puzzling because the Army, I remember, it's like people are competing for these positions, leaders, officers, and NCOs at all levels. Nobody wants to be a private forever. Everybody wants to be a sergeant major someday. At least that's the goal. But at least but that's kind of puzzling just to hear, that officers. I mean, they're not accepting. They opt out. So that's one thing. But the sad thing there is, like, I guess the fix right now, they're activating active duty battalion command level to take over these reserve battalion command, which is a fix, but it's not probably not a appropriate fix. But they're probably getting into the root cause of why a lot of these officers are not are opting out. And probably there's also got to be some kind of something in place. Hey, you opt out, hey, you got to get out or something. And then of course the last thing I want, last week on the 27th of July is the anniversary of the chaplain corps in our Army. So really, for our viewers, when the Army was created in June 1775, 15 June, the infantry is the oldest branch in our Army, and then of course the military, and then shortly after that in July, the chaplain's corps was created. So really that makes them the second oldest, So that's just something to applaud and congratulate. Give a shout out to all those in the chaplain corps. Congratulations and happy birthday to all of you. I'll pause there, Saleh. See what's on your mind.
Well, I just want to round back with you on the reserve, the reserve, the reserve officers declining battalion command, and that is pretty interesting, and I would probably assume that has a lot to do with, the risk in them taking a command versus their day job that they have to go back to, but that really is an interesting dynamic there. But to go back to something that's not so serious, this day in 1994, I don't know if you guys all remember the Macarena, where it just exploded, and especially from the islands where we are from, right? In Samoa, they call it the Macarena, but in Samoa we call it the Makalenga. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, and that was all that was on my mind. Well, should we carry on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, and just as you said, Isaiah, so much has happened in the month of July, and we hope that that you and all the guests took time out to enjoy it with your families. We all know that school shopping is happening right now, and it means the kids will soon return to school. So we wish all our students from Toa Talk the very best and safe return for another school year. And at this point of the show, we'd like to go on ahead before we introduce our guests. We'd like to highlight one of our local artists, and we're always highlighting 1K Tui, and this is off of his new album, Falling in Love.
Nice.
Wish we could turn back time.
She can. Yes, sir. Looking so beautiful today is.
I'll take the blame for the reason that we fell off. Been capping every day, pretending that we've been well off. But the truth is I was blind. Girl, I was young without time to really mature my mind. But now I see the mistakes I've made. I wasn't well prepared. Girl, I was too afraid to let my guard down. Like Kanye, I let it fall down. But what it all comes down to is you. Is you willing to give me a chance to prove that the change I rap is deep and holds truth? Is you willing to look forward to a future, forget all the bad and drama that we've been through? I could give you the world, but in exchange I need your heart. Though you think I don't care, I've been loving you from afar. Though you think I don't hurt, I've been ripping myself apart. Think I forgot the days, I've been graphing them like a chart. I've been counting down the days until we get back. I've been faithful to the love, don't you forget that. I told you, girl, that I love you, spitting that only facts. I'm picking up all the slack, I'm putting that on my back. I've been counting down the days until we get back. I've been running down this music, but I fell off your track. They saying love is a game, I'm saying let's run it back. I tell you I'm only human, forgive me for all the jack lists. Keep it a stack, baby girl, said I'm a fool for you. Keep it a G, baby girl, said I'm a fool for you. 10 toes down, ain't nothing I wouldn't do for you. 10 toes down, ain't nothing I wouldn't do for you. Girl, I'm your rider, I'm your best friend. Don't want you searching for the next man. No need for searching, I'm the best man. I know we broken, let me fix it. Let me keep it a stack, baby girl, said I'm a fool for you. Keep it a G, baby girl, said I'm a fool for you. 10 toes down, ain't nothing I wouldn't do for you. 10 toes down, ain't nothing I wouldn't do for you.
What's all our fans out there? Well, sorry to cut it halfway, but if you want to listen to him a little bit more, that's 1K Tui. That's a song off of his new album, Falling in Love. The name of the song is Apology. So check him out on YouTube or Spotify. What did you think of that?
Hey, we've been telling our audience, our viewers, every show that we've said this in the very beginning, last year sometimes, that this kid's going places. So you need to start following. You need to follow him. And I think we followed him when he first came out with his very first, just a single. And then he just released his this album last month. So it's good to see. I mean, again, I see this kid every weekend or every, here in our neighborhood. So, he's good. He's come up with some good stuff. I'd like to recognize John DeCapo there in the audience. Welcome, John. So, but really, so let's go ahead and get started. It was July in 1961. And the 38 members of the Green Bay Packers football team were gathered for the first training camp, for the first day of training camp. The previous season has ended with a heartbreaking defeat when they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. When they were up, but they kind of squandered and messed up and came back. The Philadelphia Eagles came back and won the game. So on the first day of training camp, the players were eager to advance their game to the next level and start working on the details that would help them hopefully win a championship. But their coach, Vince Lombardi, had a different idea. He took nothing for granted. He began a tradition of starting from scratch or starting from the basics, back to the basics, assuming that all the players were blank slates who carried over no knowledge from the first year. He began the most elemental statement of all. He said, "Gentlemen, holding the football in his right hand, this is a football." And then the coach, Vince Lombardi, started to explain the football, what the dimension, what, its length, what the football is made of, and of course, how the football is kicked and carried. After that, he took them to the field. He said, "Gentlemen, this is a football field. And then he did the same. He explained the dimension, the length and the width of the football field, and of course the 5 meter, the increments on the, by yards on the field, the end zone, the dimension there, how many points scored, if it's a touchdown in the end zone. He even talked about the goalposts, the length, the width, the ball is kicked, and so on. So he really went back to the basics. All right. So then Coach Lombardi's methodical coverage of the fundamentals continued throughout the training camp. Each player reviewed how to block and tackle, very basic fundamentals of football. They also opened up the playbook and started from page 1. His team would become the best in the league at the task everyone else took for granted, which is the basic fundamentals. 6 months later, the Green Bay Packers beat the New York Giants 37-0 to win the NFL championship. So mastering the basic fundamentals is the key to success for any mission, operation, or task. Our topic today is entitled Back to the Basics. Again, back to the basics. We have invited some of our friends from both the Army and the Air Force for this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Sergeant First Class Tina Potasi, Master Sergeant Orlando Misa Alefua, and Captain Kawika Afoka. Welcome. All right, everybody, welcome. It's good to have you guys.
Well, welcome everyone, and it's great to have you guys on Tour Talk. So before we, as we start, please take a moment right now to tell the viewers about yourselves. Where you were born, where you were raised, your likes and dislikes, and I guess in the order of what we're seeing right now. Tina, if you would like to open up the discussion, and then we'll follow on with Kavika and then Orlando. The floor is yours.
Thank you for this great opportunity to share and not only receive great knowledge and information from our Air Force personnel here. Hail from the village of Whangatongo. Yes, and my parents, I see Misa Lefua, so my dad is from Ofumanua, so I think we might have some relation, but just to be sure, we can talk offline so we can currently almost out of the military, going through some stuff, and pretty soon I'm going to be enjoying retirement. And I have 5 siblings. I was an educator before joining the military in the very late age, so I'm glad that I'm here today and about to embark on another journey. Some likes: I love adventure. I love kayaking, walking, volleyball. Yes. As you can see, I got a volleyball shirt on.
Yeah.
And, I like meeting people. I like to, share, and not only a good book, especially an autobiography. Thank you.
Tina, can you, before the others started, Tina can talk about what are you doing now in the Army?
Right now, I'm a HR ever since I've been in the military. So it's something that is very dear to me. And this is why, because I get to serve soldiers in that capacity, because intrinsic satisfaction that gets me is seeing somebody saying, thank you. That's all my satisfaction that I need when helping soldiers. So my profession is I take it at heart, because helping soldiers, and especially anywhere downrange, I've been there, done that, and I love helping soldiers, families, and anybody that is in need of help.
Awesome. Thanks, Tina. Kavika.
Mic check.
Gotcha.
All right. Yeah. Hey, good evening. I guess here I'm located at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So my name's Captain Kavika Hafoka. I'm currently stationed here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Currently the military intelligence commander under 2nd Brigade with the 82nd. I'm originally born and raised on Maui, Hawaii. My parents My father is Devita Hafoka from Vavautano, and my mother, Aloha, from Molokai. Um, Again, being raised in a large family, I'm one of six siblings. Um, Participated in sports growing up, and decided to take the leap and join the military, specifically in the United States Army. One of the reasons why is to pursue higher education, and then also just having that camaraderie, that team support that we see also within our culture, in the Polynesian culture, and then also with playing sports growing up. It was just a natural fit for me to make that leap and join the service. I also joined on the enlisted side first as a field artilleryman, basic at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then my first duty station at Fort Hood, Texas. And then 4 years in, I decided to make the leap and go the officer route through Green to Gold. And then following the schooling there at Benning and through ROTC, I commissioned into the armor branch with a branch detail into military intelligence. So fast forwarding, currently here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Again, I love sports. I'm a fan of anything that brings a team together, whether that's rugby, football, soccer, any sports of that nature. I think what I enjoy doing is just being around people. It is a people-ran organization, whether you're in the military or whether you're serving in other capacities in public service. And I think that what brings me fulfillment, what brings me joy, and coming into work every day is being entrusted to work with paratroopers within my organization, not only leading but serving, and being a part of their lives and bringing a different perspective to the company, and then being able to be a part of their lives as we go through training events and participating in other extracurricular activities. So yeah, that's me. Any questions?
All right. Well, thanks, Kavika. But for our audience, I just want to add a little bit. I know Captain Foka here when he back, as he mentioned, with our days in the First Cavalry Division. I was this division sergeant major, but then I watched him there. So he was, I think, at the time they pulled him from the line, and became the commander, Second Brigade commander's driver. So every time when I go visit the command team there, he's there, and he's always interesting. Kind of always asking questions, but willing to learn. But I knew that this young man would go places, would go far if he stayed in the Army. I was very glad to hear that, he got accepted at Green to Gold, and look at him now. I mean, the dude is just, he's moving up. And of course, he's a physical specimen, when it comes to sports and all those things. So if you want to get in that realm, I mean, hey, hit him up, But I think you'll be a good commander, and good luck to you, sir. And congratulations on command. Or well, he didn't say, he just took command a month or so ago. So congratulations on command, sir. Orlando. Orlando, can you hear us? Testing.
Sure.
Yep.
We can hear you.
I want to unplug your headset, your headphone.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I don't know what happened, but my headset just shut off. What is it? Is it my turn?
Yes, sir.
All right. So thank you for having me. My name is Orlando Philason K. Misala Ifua. I'm currently stationed at MacDill Air Force Base, Tampa, Florida. I am a flying crew chief here, so I pretty much, I don't know if you guys seen the KC-135 straddle tanker that flies around refueling other aircrafts. That's pretty much what I do. I take this aircraft anywhere it needs to go, and I refuel other aircrafts mid-air. So start back. I was born in Landstuhl, Germany. My parents were both military, so we kind of moved around quite a bit. They were Army, but Landstuhl, Germany is where I was born, and then we kind of moved around every time my mom was to deploy. That's when she would send me back to Samoa. So I was partially raised in American Samoa, Pago Pago. That's where my mom is now for a few months to kind of help family out, and that's where my grandma and my uncle Skeevy is. So hopefully I get to go back there every once in a while. Hopefully just to take my kids over there to see what the island life is like, right? I like sports. Obviously, I'm Samoan, so I like food. I love to cook. The one thing I miss about the islands is the umus. Miss the umu, miss the cooking the whole pig with my grandpa back in the day. And another thing I like to do is exercise. With a lot of food, I gotta exercise just a little bit more. As of right now, I'm currently at a hotel. Hopefully, you guys cannot hear the music playing in the background. Hotel at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, at my brother-in-law's graduation from boot camp for the Army. So congrats to him. Dislikes. There's a few dislikes that pops in my head and that's as far as like in the work environment. I don't like working with truly negative mindset of people. Right now, that's all I can think of. It's hard working with them, but I try to stay try to stay positive, and try to stay cohesive with them. Right.
Cool. Thanks, Orlando.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Let me add on Orlando too. For our audience, I know Orlando. He's a little young man. Like I said, his parents and us, we're stationed together in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's where we got to know Orlando and the family. Orlando went to school with my kids, so I think I was asking him earlier, and he's still in touch with our kids. So it's great to see him from high school now, to having a family of his own, and then moving up in the. Sad that you went to the Air Force, but that's okay. We're not holding it against you, But we're all on the same. We're all on the same team, So congratulations again. Orlando was promoted to Master Sergeant just late last month, and congratulations. Just keep moving up and continue to make a difference in the Air Force as well. So there you have it on our crew there. So, well, thanks. So it's good to know all of you. And for our viewers, please comments, please coming in. I think Tina, somebody that wants to know the status of their leave form. So please check on that after the show, or you may not, so and so on. Well, let's start now. So as you heard, our topic is on back to the basics, and we came up with this one because there's a concern. Even before I got out of the military, there was a concern there, that we've been fighting. We've been in war fighting since 2001. Since 9/11, we've been at war fighting. For I think some of you guys in the panel here are old enough to remember before 9/11, the training that we went through, the training methodology, the way that we train, the way that we, do development, our leaders, our soldiers, so a little bit different. Now we came in 9/11, things accelerated, we got new equipment, got new stuff going on. And we're more battle focused minded, in this. So when we do that, and some of us as senior leadership at the time, we kind of failed, some of the basic things that made us a better individual and also a better unit, a cohesive unit. And that's what we want to talk about today. So, and one of the big things, so I'm trying to set the stage here. So when we go into the conversation, So back to the basic was a big thing in the Army. If you remember General Odierno, when he was the chief of staff in the Army, God may bless his soul. He passed away just early this year. His number one priority at the time was leader development and back to the basics. So back to the basic was a phrase that was kind of used by, really at all levels. Hey, we need to get back to the basic. We need to get back to the basics. So in my level, I was, as I go out and, check units and talk to soldiers and observe their training and so on, I came away with that it's not just one basics because, what we're going to talk about here, but seem like there's different basics, depends. So I conclude that there's two different basics or types of basics. So one, for those who came in the Army or in the military before 9/11, their basics a lot different than those who came in 9/11 and now to fight the global war on terrorism. So there's a little difference, and we'll talk about it. Hopefully, we'll explore that. So that's why that's the reason why we feel that this is a good topic, especially for those who are currently serving, and for those who are veterans that are listening in. Hopefully that we can all share. For those who's retired or the veterans, hopefully you can share your experiences or your observations before you get out in the military, before you retire. So first question now to our panel here. When you hear the term back to the basics, what is that? What comes to mind? Or what does that mean to you? Let's go with ladies first.
Oh, why, thank you. Well, back to the basics. Well, anybody can say all kinds of things made back to the basic. I think back to the basic, basically what it means, basic. We don't have to complicate things. I think in my mind, when I think of basic, as far as leadership, I think it boils down to, I'd say, knowing your soldiers, talking to your soldiers. It doesn't have to be in any type of environment, just being able to be open up, share with them, and not only receiving. I find that in my career as an NCO, I didn't learn that right away. It took time. And I know it's just like a wine, right? As wine ages, it becomes better. But there's a lot of plethora of books out there about leadership, and every leadership is different. But I think for me to own that leadership is going down to the basic in knowing who your people are, down to situations, family problems. It makes it more genuine, so that way you can establish that relationship with your soldiers, friends, and co-workers. I mean, once you establish that through that genuineness, I think that is a way moving towards. And just being basic is talking, being able to communicate, share, and interaction can leave a lasting impact, and that's important. Just by being able to absorb what's going on with your friends, families, your soldiers, that's important to me. And it's going down to basic. Thank you.
Okay. Open floor.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what she said there, especially going back to the basics in the garrison environment. What I would add to that, when we think operationally or tactically, what back to the basic means to me is really honing and focusing in on those individual soldier skills. What does that look like? That's land navigation. That's taking your ACFT, the new ACFT 3.0 for the Army. That's focusing on weapons qualification and making sure that your soldiers are prepared for a contested environment where they would have to go in and they can survive, and being able to fight at the basic level. This also kind of brings back what we're focusing here within my unit alone. we're doing this, the ESB, the Expert Soldier Badge currently, and it's like, well, E3B, Expert Soldier Badge, Expert Infantry Badge, and the FMP. But those programs or these events that the unit is focusing on, that's what they're honing in on. They're making sure that they're physically ready, but also mentally ready to handle challenges that lie ahead. And we're trying to go away from this counterinsurgency, this COIN environment, like Sergeant Major had alluded to with the global war on terrorism, where we had this FOB, when you go down range that you were comfortable in, and then you would go do these convoy operations outside of the FOB, and then come back and you're good for the day. We're going away from that. We're trying to go into this LISCO environment, this large-scale combat operations environment within the Army, and that transition has led the Army to focus on the basics and ensuring that these soldiers are trained, not just from basic training, but then when they get to their unit, that they're able to continue to hone these skills, develop their craft, and ensure that they are still ready at a moment's notice to deploy. And that kind of is what I was thinking when it came to back to the basics.
Thanks, sir. Orlando?
Yeah, so for me, back to the basics is like you gave the analogy of football, right? I used to play sports, and that was the first thing we always did during boot camp or Red Dawn. Through high school, college, was going back to fundamentals, like how to step this way, how to step this way, how you should place your arms, and like how to tackle, like the basic rules. And when we get into the military's standpoint, or like the Air Force, like back to the basics for NCOs, even senior NCOs or even officers, is trying to get closer to the troops, the airmen, the soldiers. And like, I don't know how it was when you guys were serving, right? When you guys are serving, or you guys are still serving, but some of you older guys, how it was for as leaders. Were you guys behind computers, or were you guys constantly walking out there to the field to meet and greet soldiers? And I feel like that's where that disconnect is, as far as the soldiers and the airmen in our NCO Corps, is that they have that disconnect, right? And it's all about simplicity. If we go back to some of the things that we used to do, it's going to be better. It should be better for everyone, for the soldiers, and including the leaders.
No, thanks. Those are all the good comments. Thank you guys for sharing your thoughts here. A lot of our viewers also share the same. The basic Vanna said. Basic fundamentals. It's kind of what you guys allude to. Also, back to simple fundamentals, ideas to move forward with the objective. Ben also mentioned, it's about Army values, living those Army values. That's the basic things that we learned that in basic training. We learned that throughout, but then sometimes we kind of neglect that, because I think you can see by the result of, issues that are happening both in the Army and the Air Force, across the force, So KC fams here said basic to me is having strong back, hard feet, and dirty hands. As a young Marine, all you have to do is listen. There you go. All you have to do is listen, all you have to do is listen and do as you're told. So there's a lot of good. Thanks for all your comments here. And of course, Siamanu mentioned that it would be good to have a Navy representative. Yeah. Well, we don't have a Navy, but if you are a Navy, you're welcome to, Siamanu. If you're Navy, we'll welcome your remarks here. So, but anyway, so back to the basic. The question, is is our topic for our viewers, for those who are checking late. So I think it's a good topic, and I thank all of you guys. So what I gather from that, from Tina, is just knowing your people. The Captain Fogus talked about, that transitioning from the battlefield to a garrison environment, and then doing all those basic things, taking care of, soldiers, from marksmanship to PT, the stuff that we do the day to day. And Orlando talked about, the communication key, but I think those are all important. So thank you for that. So let's move on.
Well, team, there's a saying that goes like this: do the routine things routinely. So what does this mean to you guys, and how does it apply to the topic of going back to the basics?
It's a good question, Sally.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. Routine, something that you do on a daily basis every day. I'm looking towards PT, physical, training. I know some of us who are retired sort of steer away sometimes, but mentally in the head, it's that time in the morning to get up and go. That is something that always stays with me. and that's probably why I like outdoors so much. And there's some things that I can't do anymore, but I still try to get up in the morning and do physical. It becomes second nature to you, as far as physical, training in the morning. If you do things routinely, as I mentioned earlier, it becomes a routine thing. Yeah. So therefore, you're not far away from some of the things that you've done in the military, and you still carry them forward as you go in your civilian life. For example, your discipline. You can easily spot a military personnel versus a civilian, because there's certain things that you've done in the military that carries on with you. So I would say that's a plus, because that sort of, singles you out from some of the people that you're working with if you were part of the military. I'd say that is a positive thing, moving towards, doing things routinely. I mean, that's what's come to mind as far as routine.
Oh, thanks, Tina.
Yeah, no, I like what you said there, especially with incorporating physical training. That's a great example because what you're showing is consistency. And that's what I think about when we look at doing things routine things. You're building a good habit. And when you create these good habits and you stay consistent, then it's providing you that motivation when you're waking up one day and you just don't want to do it anymore, or you just don't have the motivation to do it. And so consistency will bring motivation when there is none. And then it also goes into your commitment, and what she was alluding to as well with the discipline factor there. When you're doing these things day in and day out, and it doesn't have to be physical training. It could be reading a book every morning. When you wake up, you're taking a cold shower to wake up in the morning, and then you're reading a couple paragraphs in a book to kind of just stimulate your mind mentally and get you prepared for the day. And it just goes back to what I think about in creating a good habit. And when you create these good habits, you're able to push through the day. And also when you do these things day in and day out, you're creating these small goals. You're creating these small goals that you can accomplish that are feasible. You're able to do these things daily, and when you feel that sense of accomplishment, then you're more motivated to do other tasks throughout the day, and you're able to tackle other problem sets throughout the day. And so when you're setting that good tone you're doing these routines, you're doing these good habits, then you're setting the tone for the rest of the day, and you're able to tackle harder problem sets when you're able to accomplish those smaller goals throughout the day. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, sir.
Good stuff. To me, do things routinely. Repetition, my coach used to always say, repetition is the mother of learning to build great habits. All right. So what I do every single day, I obviously wake up and I listen to something motivational. I try to get my mind right, to start my day off correctly, because I don't want to go to work with a salty attitude. I don't want to go to work tired, because that affects the troops, right? Your mentality affects other people. So the first thing I do, I try to get my mind right to positively affect others, and that's my grasp on do the routine things routinely. Military, for me, military has always been a way of life for me and my family. We were born into it. We grew up into it. Whether I was in Samoa, whether I was in the States, whether I was TDY somewhere, I always represent myself as being a military, Air Force member, and it's a way of life for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Orlando. Sally, you have anything to add, Sally?
No, I love all that
Okay.
all together. It's a pretty good. You brought up some pretty good points with the small incremental changes. The only thing I just wanted to add to is really being very purposeful about be very purposeful about going through and your routine, and everything's got to lead to something, but the planning of it, and then just doing it, even though they're little incremental changes, it yields a lot of like a big change later on down the road.
Oh, thank you there. Thank you guys for those are all good stuff. Go ahead, Tina.
I'd like to bring back Miss Alifu's point as far as family and going back to culture. One thing that routinely, and going into positivity is for me, being a young soldier first coming into the military. One thing that never parted from me, because it is a routine that I've done back home, is going to church every Sunday. This is why, because my mom, oh no, have you gone to church? Which brings back good memories. Not only that, when you go to church, you hear the sermon, you get ideas, positive, and that is for your week. That is your word of the day for the week or something like that. So, and it goes with your personality too. If you're positive, I tell you, people tend to gravitate towards you. That's what I know. It's something that I've learned throughout my career, is that, permeating positivity, you can, get people with you. So that will never part from me, is like going to church, hearing the word. And that's your weekly thing that you ponder upon and just think of the word. Knock on wood, my parents are no longer with me. Rest in peace. But that will never part from me. It's going to church, routinely going to church, get good ideas from it. So, thank you.
Thanks. For you guys to feel free to, if there's any redo, just feel free to jump in. But I appreciate all your comments. But I think, you guys hit it on the nail on the head. There is those the routine. But I want to kind of guide you back to to our topic, or back to the basics. The question is always routine things, but really in relation to what, back to the basics. The reason why we're talking about this, because we're kind of lacking in our services. or we need to get back to. So doing routine thing, routinely, that's which is important. You guys mentioned PT, making it a habit. When you do those habits, it will become a routine. But if you go back to the military, back to the basics, we know that PT is always in the morning, for most units. Unless you're MP, then you got, different shifts. They do PT in the afternoon for the night shifts and so forth. But that's routine for them. So routine is always, and we know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. It's going to be formation. It's going to be PT. We know what's going to happen at 9 o'clock. There's going to be a PT a formation, and then so on and so on. And throughout the rest of the day, that's routine. In the garrison environment, what else we do in the garrison environment? How often? So you're a commander now, and how often do you do your analysis? At 10%. That's a monthly thing, right? So that's a routine right there. That's monthly. It has to happen every month. How often do we do multiple, or what they call motor maintenance nowadays, right? It's every Monday, motor maintenance. Those are routine stuff we do routinely, and that's what we're trying to connect. There is, how does that doing routine things routinely connect to our topic of back to the basics? That's what I'm trying to kind of get you back in that frame of mind that because so these routine things routinely here those are the basics that we need to get back to. And you guys all hit it on the head, and talk about PT. I mean, as you move up the higher echelon, when you move up the brigade or at least the division level and above, doing PT hours, you walk around headquarters, there's staff officers doing staff work, right? Well, instead of being out there doing PT. So they're not doing routine things routinely. So somebody has to get them out there. Hey, yeah, sir, close your laptop, get out there and do some PT and so on, Or sometimes, how many soldier knows that there's PT in the morning, but in the last minute, hey, I got to go to the store and grab something, whatever the case may be. But those are routine things that we do routinely, and it's all part of. We got to get back to the basics. Those are the basics things that are foundation of what we do in the military, but we kind of lacking there. So that's why I like you guys bringing those points up. Okay, so again, thanks for that. So let's go to the next. For this conversation now, right? I mean, I paint the picture of back to the basics, and I mentioned before that 9/11, before 9/11, their basics a little different, and then of course, and here's the reason why. I mean, I came in way before 9/11. I came in the early '80s, right out of high school, right? And for us, our development, we work on. I came in the era where during the Cold War. So we trained as, hey, we got to get ready. The Russians going to invade us anytime. So we trained the leader development that we went through, soldier development. You're talking about from PT to training, the field training exercise. So we were taught. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys remember CTT, those common task training. Those individual training from put on your mask, put on your mop gear. How to, break down your weapon, put it together, perform a function check. Those are CTT. Those are common tasks. We master those because that's what we train on all the time. And it was tested. It was testable. Even what we call, so we got CTT, and also there's another test, and more specific that we get tested on annually. So those are some things that we had to do. So anyway, and not only that, but we were taught, I was taught at young E4 how to develop training, how to conduct training, how to execute training, how to plan training. I was just an E4. We were given doctrine. Here's a manual, Bimoto. I want you to prepare a class. You're given a class on move under direct fire. Here's a manual, blah, blah. Here's the reference. So we were developed then by providing our leadership, not only teaching us how, but they provide the doctrinal, the actual manual for us, a reference for us to use. It wasn't just kind of our day to day. Oh, TTPs, right? TTP, we use that a lot, right? I mean, I see a lot of heads up and down because in this 9/11, we didn't really hear TTPs until 9/11. Tactical troops and procedures, or what is it? Tactical training procedures, right? And then even in our day, there was such things called, what is called it? I remember off the top of my head, yes. So there's such things called when we do anything we do from PT or any training, we always have to give a task condition standard. Since 9/11, it was task and purpose, right? Remember that, you guys? Task and purpose. There's a difference, right? So, but again, but those things that we did back then, it helped develop us into better soldiers, better leaders, and so forth. But then, of course, Cold War ended. We never got to fight that war. But we became better trainers. We became more savvy on doctrinal stuff. We didn't just like TTP. We knew doctrine because we were trained on doctrine. In our day, in 9/11, since 9/11 happened, we were so busy. You know, if you ask a soldier, someone that deployed, I mean, for 9/11, what does basic mean to you? They will tell you convoy live fire, IED lanes, culture awareness, and anything that related to Afghanistan, right? Culture awareness stuff, TTPs, and things like that, task and purpose, because those are things associated with 9/11. I mean, with the global war and terrorism. So you can see there's two different topics. I mean, basics here. So the next question now, so for the rest of our discussion is, we talked about what basic mean to you, but I think what's more important is when we ask our soldier, when we task our troops or our organization to go back to the basic, it is important that we identify what that basic is. That makes sense? Because we can't just say go back to the basic. Why? Because, Master Sergeant Orlando, you've been in the Air Force longer than the new airman just came in. So if you say, hey, let's get back to the basics, his basic is right out of AIT. That's the limit of his basic. Well, your basic, you got over 15 years of experience. Same thing as you, Tina, and also Kavika. Your experience is like, so you're telling your soldier, we need to get back to the basics. It's like that video and audio is not matching because your level of experience and what you're expecting is not what they're expecting. So that's why it's so important to identify what that basic is, but then you give them a task condition standard, let them go on and execute. That way we're all on the same sheet of music. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we've done is, go ahead.
I think somebody alluded to that. There's a disconnect.
Yes.
And that disconnect, yes, and that disconnect is which is a drawback to what's going on right now. Looking from when I first came in to now, being a Buck E5, you've already went through some of the process, like you said, task, condition, and standard. My NCO taught me that. So this is how you do this: your task, your condition, and your standard. Now you got to go and collect all the equipment and everything to teach that. However, now fast forwarding, there's too much stuff going on where that training is sort of pushed down a little bit, meaning the focus is not on that training so much, but the focus is all other things aside from that training. I think that's where we're lacking. And yes, I can definitely confirm that, because coming back from the ranks, coming up on the ranks, those are some of the things that I've seen, which is not so much now. Because if we say it's training, oh no, it's not training because there's stuff going on that needs us. So I think to me, the command has to allow NCOs go back to the basics. If that's what we have to do, close the shop and go back and do training, because that's the only way you can cross train and teach soldiers how to do things like your basic, like your CTT tasks.
Yes.
They won't know until they see that book and get down with it and get to the ground and look at, this is how you stop the bleeding. Because like you said, it comes second nature, like routinely. If we keep on doing that, just like training for infantry, they go out there and do their training, just like myself as an S1. I have to corral my soldiers and say, this is a task, this is the condition, and this is the standards. And if you don't, and train them, walk them through in order for them to know what the task and what the conditions and the standards, and conduct an AAR, after action review. I mean, that's what we're lacking nowadays, is going back to those basics. And those basics are the foundation of what to move forward with. I mean, I can attest to that, because I see more meetings, I see more mission that draws the NCO away, and now something else is priority over that training. But I firmly believe that's some of the knowledge that I have is from those training when I was a Buck E5, a E4, and all that. So that's what we're lacking.
Yeah.
And to
So
go back to those basics, yes,
yeah.
those are the basics which solidifies and grow upon to become NCO.
Yeah.
And then, thank you.
No, it's important. That's why, and that's thank you, Tina. But that's why I just meant in my comments earlier. I said, is it back to the basic? It is, but then it's important for leaders to identify what that basic is. Because everybody's got different. Like your troops have less experience than you do. So just make sure that all of you guys are on the same sheet of music. So for the next question here, we've identified. Here are some of the basics that we want to get back to. Some of the things that we felt that we lack in. I think if we just focus on on these things here, that will kind of get us back to the basic foundation. So for this conversation, there's 4 key tasks that Sal and I identify. One, the lost art of leadership in the garrison environment. The lost art of leadership in the garrison environment. Number 2, building trust. Number 3, building a cohesive team. And number 4, leader development. So it's important now. You got to think. What all these topics we're going to cover them one by one. But as you talk about these topics, remember how does that apply to back to the basics when you talk about these? What are we missing? So let's jump into it. So the lost art of leadership in a garrison environment. So from your many experiences, what are some of those garrison routines that our leaders are failing at, or that we neglect or neglect? Open mic.
From the Air Force perspective, we so our leadership pushes down too many taskers on the squadrons, on the units. So when I meet my taskers, hey, we need this guy to do honor guard. We need this guy to go recruit. We need this guy to be an MTI, and we just don't have the manpower. Like we would have 10 people in our shop, and we lose half of them to taskers. Like, oh, well, these guys are out of pocket, and we only have 5 people turn 60-some aircrafts. So I think too many taskers, we tend to forget about the first thing, right? So like if we need someone for a commander's call, like commander's call will come out like, hey, we need Airman so-and-so to do a recruitment flyer or something like that. We tend to forget about like what we spoke about the first time. And if I go back, if our commander came down and said, "Hey, we got to go back to the basics," that would be the first task, and then the next task will come up, and then the next task will come up. It's kind of like what I forgot who said it, but someone else on here said it. I think it was Tina that said it. We would forget about it'll be so far down the line of taskers that we'd forget about what the commander said like a few weeks ago, right? Another art of leadership that I think that our leadership forgets is taking, even the NCOs, senior NCOs, that we're not taking accountability for ourselves and for our airmen and our soldiers. If we do that, you see one guy doing something wrong and you correct him, and then another guy sees that you're doing the same thing, you're not taking accountability of yourself. And you that's how you lose respect of the airmen. That's how you lose respect of the soldiers, from them looking at you. All right, lead by example.
Awesome. Thanks, Orlando.
Yeah, something I was thinking about too with the lost art of leadership is, and this is in a garrison environment, is when leaders are planning throughout the week, and obviously like back to the basics where we do motor pool Mondays, we do training meetings, we do command and staff throughout the week. It's leaders prioritizing those tasks and understanding that you only have so many individuals, so many soldiers that are able to perform those tasks. So you're prioritizing from whether it's like 1 through 5, and with the understanding that you probably will only accomplish the top 3, and those last 2 will go by the wayside, and you just got to push it to the next day or the next week. And so leaders have to come up on the net when we have these meetings, because that's why we have them. We're trying to project, we're trying to provide transparency for our soldiers, and we do that through these meetings. And obviously we're not trying to make them long, or we're not trying to take time away from training, but what we're trying to establish is a baseline, and we're trying to establish what can be accomplished, and then trying to deconflict what higher is putting on the lower units to get done with those, red cycle taskings or additional duties that we have. And so I think, 1, you set priorities, and then 2, you provide the pushback. You provide the clear guidance of what can be accomplished, and then you have the understanding that at the end of the day, we're just not going to be able to finish those last 2. And you have to be okay with that as leaders. And if they're not, then, probably need to take a second look on what you're prioritizing throughout the week or for that day. And, when we talk about back to the basics again in a garrison environment, it's making sure that your leaders are empowered, and making sure your leaders are competent and proficient in their jobs. And there's a lot of additional duties that get thrown out there from, safety, DTMS, whatever it may be. It's making sure that our leaders are properly trained to perform those duties. And if they're not, then it's your job as a leader to make sure they are, and giving them the time they need to accomplish those tasks. That's kind of what I was thinking about when it came to that lost art of leadership, because I think it was never lost. I think the Army does a good job at providing that those classes, the mentorship. I think it's there.
Yeah.
What I think is not happening is the time that is afforded, or the time that is allocated to your leaders to make sure those are occurring, and making sure that what is being rebutted, what is being pushed back, is also articulated and communicated up higher.
Yeah.
So they have the same understanding you do, with the context of why it can't be done.
Okay. Oh, well said. Well said.
Yeah, I think it encompasses everything that they've mentioned. Being able to manage, especially when you're NCOs, like you said, you have to lead by example. It starts from you, that's being basic. If your soldiers are down there getting dirty in a motor pool, you should be down there too. It's about being a servant to those who you lead, I think. In order for, I'm looking at it, that I'm just looking at my shop, as an S1 shop. How do I manage every tasker that's coming down? The battalion commander wants this mission, my S1. So you're left with, how do you manage all that? How do you manage it? You have to prioritize your 5-meter targets, your 10, and your 50-meter targets. What's important and what to let go. And of course, being able to understand that you have soldiers' needs too. Not because you're NCO, I want to look good in front of my battalion commander, but know how to balance everything that's coming in and your soldiers. Because at the end of the day, your soldiers are the ones doing the work for you, for the battalion. And just shifting it that way in my mentality as a shop, owning the shop, it's being able to successfully and effectively manage all that. And it becomes more complex when you can't manage it anymore. Your production goes down, your mental goes down. So, and what, the captain mentioned, is being able to push back when it's necessary to push back, and taking care of your soldiers first in order to be able to produce what the battalion and the mission entails. Thank you.
I wanted to add something to that. Yeah, to Tina. So you mentioned, what was it? Getting down and dirty, right? So I do like that point that you mentioned. It's truly about, I guess, when you're climbing the ladder of NCO or climbing the ladder of being an officer, we tend to become too far separated from, the troops. The guys are getting down and dirty, and I think that's like one of the places that we lose trust with the young NCOs, the young soldiers and the airmen, is we become too far removed from them. So I just wanted to add that to it.
No, it's good. I appreciate all your comments. I mean, I think you guys, brought up the prioritization of tasks, and I think all of you guys kind of allude to that. There's so many competing events, but having been in your shoes and and serving up in a higher, and I know how it is as a company command, the company level, as we know, is where everything happens in the Army. I'm not sure about the Air Force, but in the Army, everything happens. All these tasking, Orlando, you mentioned about funeral details or color guard, everything, or police call. All those things happen at the company level. So they keep giving these company command all these tasking, but not, so now you got a company of 140 people, and after all the tasking, but yet at the same time, we have training supposed to happening. I think Tina kind of alluded to earlier. Next, okay, the tasks are supposed to be conducted this week. Well, it's not really. It's done by maybe 2 or 3 versus a platoon or squad. So so I think that's a key thing with their prioritization of tasking. You guys mentioned accountability, and that's just important. I think we kind of lack that. And that's one of the lost art of garrison. I mean, the leadership of garrison. Somebody alluded to. It's like the accountability kind of serves 2 things. Accountability is more like, hey, accountability for making sure everybody's there. And I think one of you guys alluded to the fact of when somebody's in trouble and somebody turn the other way, so they're actually kind of not taking accountability for, that's the other kind of accountability. But those are all important. But you guys brought some good point. Empowering subordinates. I mean, we used to do that a lot. But again, as we get so busy, with the battle rhythm that's going on now, we pull out Afghanistan, but we still got Iraq. We still got the Middle East, other places in the Middle East, and we still got, and then big in Europe, the big thing in Europe right now, we're staging and all those things. So we're still taking soldiers away, but yet we still got to, in the garrison environment, we still got to function. We're not going to close the base down and say, hey, we'll worry about it when we come back. That's not going to happen. So, so here's kind of food for thought for you guys, because some of you guys are still staying in. So when we came back, and I was at, the 18th Airborne Corps. So because I saw that the lost art, but when I say lost art, does a young NCO know what to do when somebody have a DUI in their squad? What do they do? Do they know what to do, except for calling the first sergeant or calling the squad leader? Calling the squad leader, informing that's just a part of the alert process, but there's steps to it. Young lieutenants nowadays, young platoon sergeants, they don't know what, the process. So when somebody's hot under your analysis, what do? Do young leaders know what to do? That's what I meant by the lost art of leadership in a garrison environment. We know how to fight battles. We can go out there and, do damage, but is a garrison environment where we lack that? That's what I meant by the lost art of leadership, because our young leaders nowadays, even platoon sergeants, because some of those guys came in during this war, even some of the first sergeants, we miss that. If you have a soldier who writes, wife or somebody continue to write bad checks, what do? Smoking is not the answer. Does he know, or does he or she know the ACS, Army Community Service, or Air Force Community Service? They have those services. They teach them how to write checks. They teach them how to balance a checkbook. They teach them, especially young spouse, young soldiers, so forth. When a soldier goes AWOL, what's the process? Do leaders know the process? That's what I meant by the lost art of leadership. Those basic things that we used to do routinely, before the war. Since 9/11, since the global war on terrorism, we're so focused, battle focused, so we kind of lose that. The art. That's what I meant. We're trying to get that back. The leaders. Yeah, someone mentioned counseling. We're very. I can speak for the Army and most units. We suck at counseling. When you got an E5, a Sergeant E5 or Staff Sergeant, when I read these counsel statements, and when you read, "You done good," is that really a bullet? But that's counseling, But as I'm saying, that's the kind of the counseling that I see in some of the young NCOs. Again, goes back to those basic things that we know that we should do before the war. Teach people how to do that. So, and those are just a few examples, of the lost art of leadership in a garrison environment. Just get back to that. So I just kind of get you in the right frame of mind, and so hopefully after this, and our people and our viewers watching, those are some things that we gotta hopefully you'll take to heart and get back and inventory your own formation, your own organization. What are we lacking here? So I'll share this with you. So I created, when I was a Corps Sergeant, ACM Board Corps Sergeant Major, I brought all my staff guys in and say, what are some things that we need that lost art here? So I've tested each of my S1 all the way up to S5, 6, 7, 8, 9, with a task of creating this book, The Lost Art of Leadership in the Garrison Environment. And I have a chart. I have wire diagram that goes for if it's an alert, whatever, it depends on which alert. Okay, arrow goes here. Yes, that means you do these actions. If no, go do these actions. If a soldier goes AWOL, what happens? Alert, notify the commander, notify the staff duty. The commander does. So it is that detail. So I have one of those. I don't have the digits, but I have the book, created. So I have that done and printed, and it was distributed across the Corps. It's just a basic tool for young commanders and young first sergeants and leaders at all echelon, kind of get themselves re-blue on those simple basic things that we do that we kind of lack in the garrison environment. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's continue on.
So as we move on to task number 2, which is building trust. So during a deployment, leaders are with their soldiers and airmen 24/7. One can say this time together, helps build that trust. Do you think we're failing at maintaining this trust in the environment? And if so, why or why not? And I'll stop there for that question.
In the garrison environment.
In the garrison environment.
Yeah. Trust.
I think trust is a very important thing as far as basic soldiery, I think if soldiers starts to lose trust in us as NCOs and leaders, guess what? They're not going to come to us about their problems. They're going to go elsewhere. They're going to bed somewhere else. And they're going to go to the halls of the barracks and get those unsolicited advice. So I think as an NCO, as a leader, anything, you have to earn them the trust of the soldier, your team. Because if you don't earn that trust or get that trust, I'm telling you, it's a failure as a leader. And there will be some time where some soldiers are more restrained to tell us about stuff. But I think understanding and knowing your soldiers, your team, can facilitate that trust. But once your soldier or somebody loses trust in you, they're not going to confide in you in anything. And how do we do that? By constantly in their ear, not in a bad way, but communicating with them. Know what's wrong, know what that's going on with a particular person. Because believe it or not, the more they talk to you, the more that face to face, you get that trust. out of, constantly being present with them,
Yeah. No, thanks, Tina.
When I think about building trust in a garrison environment, as a leader, a couple things. You have to be approachable. You have to be a good listener, and then being open-minded. What I mean by that is you're not necessarily able to empathize, but you're able to take in that information, digest it, and then come up with possible solutions or courses of action for that individual. And when you're able to build that foundation of trust and establish a relationship with your soldiers and your subordinate leaders, they will come to you versus what Tina was saying earlier about going to some unsolicited individual in the barracks or off post. You want them to come to you with their problems because they know they can, one, trust you, and two, count on you to help them solve it or get through that situation. And I think another point to bring up when you're trying to build trust is you have to be competent. You have to know the systems in place. When you were saying, Sergeant Major, about how to handle a DUI, how to handle someone that pops hot on a UA, what do you do when soldiers are not able to pay their bills and they're living month to month on their paycheck? What are we doing as leaders to help them out in these certain situations, whether it's counselings and a way forward of how to help them through those difficult situations. I think that's the baseline. That's what every leader should be doing, and understanding how the military systems work, who those points of contact are within those programs or organizations that are supporting you at your home base, and then again being able to just have that positive interaction with your soldiers, so they know they can come to you with their problems.
Yeah. Orlando, before you comment, I appreciate it, Tina, and I just want to kind of go back to what Saleh, the question that he mentioned that during deployment, anybody that's deployed know that we're always with our soldiers 24/7, right? And the instant trust right there in the combat zone with your troops, and so again, I guess the concern is once we come back to the back home station in the garrison environment, what happened to that trust? So if the trust is not there, we got to look back at our deployment. What did we do during the deployment that caused that cohesiveness, that caused that trust, that earned that trust? I think we got to go back there, because it worked down range. So then we got to go back there. And I think a lot of our, you guys just mentioned those is knowing your people, is the communication, and being approachable, being a good listener, so on. A lot of our viewers mentioned, respect builds trust. Very, competency. So you mentioned, confident leaders, spending time together. So I kind of remember that. So I guess you got to, before you respond, if it worked down range, what are we not doing in the garrison environment? What are we doing different that caused the loss of that trust, that caused us to get back and trying to rebuild that trust with our troops?
Oh man.
Amen.
Right. So my experience. So every time I deployed, it takes a little bit of time to get cohesive. And in order to get cohesive, you got to get that trust with your team. And like the reason why we have the cohesiveness in a deployed environment is because we kind of have to train them, right, and to enable to trust them. And as soon as we get home, we have so many other things, going on. Life happens. The kids are crying in the background. Taskers are popping up. TDYs are coming. and like so many other things that you just get a little bit further away from like the guys you deployed with. And I don't know if it is how you guys deploy in the Army, but we're starting to deploy like you guys as far as one unit. But every time I deploy, there's always someone else from, Nebraska. It's always someone else from Maine, Texas, Tennessee that we put together as a team. There's always, NTO. There's always E5, senior airmen. There's always an airman. And we have to build that cohesiveness out of just like, what do you know about this aircraft, and what can you do to benefit the team? And that's what I think for that first part of that first part of the question. And a lot of times when we come back home, we tend to lose that empathy, right? Empathy is sympathy with a emotional attachment to the individual that we were just deployed with. And like the captain says, be more approachable. If you're empathetic, if you're leading by example, you should be more approachable for the young supervisor, the young soldier that wants to come to you to ask you for those questions. But it is also hard. It is also hard for you to affect someone else. Hold on, let me get my words mixed up. It's hard to affect somebody if they don't know that you care about them, right? You lose that trust in that way.
Yep.
No, I appreciate your comments. So do you have any?
No, I think that's a fact there, and I think part of the reason why the dynamics are kind of changed in a deployed environment to here in Garrison, and I think you guys have partially alluded to it, was because the dynamics of the family, and then that the lack of face time with those teams, the team that you were with when you're deployed. You're back here in Garrison. Everybody's dealing with different elements now. You add alcohol to it. You add, other dynamics you didn't have, all these other things. But I mean, and I think that changes, and married folks reintegrating with their families. So that's another thing.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, I appreciate all your comments, and you guys are spot on. Also, our viewers brought some good points as well. They said spend time together. And again, downrange. That's the instant trust right there. Just is what you do with the people. I think that's years ago when somebody asked me what is trust, I said trust is what you do with your people. That when you do that, whatever you do with your people, that earn that trust. I mean, that respect for you. And somebody just one of our viewers mentioned, respect earns trust, and it's so true. And that's what it is in the deployment environment. You got nowhere else to go. Plus, you train together as this team. The Garrison environment. Then you deploy together. You rely on each other. 24/7. You eat together, you sleep together in the same barracks, you go out on patrol, whatever it is you do, you go to the PX, you shop at. So you do all those things together, you play cards, you hang out and stuff like that. So you kind of build that, relationship there. You foster that relationship downrange, and then you come back, you redeploy, you come back to, the Garrison environment. Okay, Captain Kawika's got a wife and kids got to go home to. And while Bobby wants to go out and party and say, hey, buddy, I'm sorry, I cannot tonight, man. I got a family to go home to. Tina has a family to go to, but Susie wants to go out and go to dinner, and all of a sudden now like, oh, my team's leaving me, and as Solly alluded to, hey, we're in a different environment. We all have, families. We all have our own agendas now, but that's, and some of our soldiers find it hard because they're, especially our soldiers live in the barracks, and that's why a lot kind of turn into the alcohol and do, silly things because, they kind of miss that camaraderie. They miss that bonding, downrange. But again, it's your responsibility as leaders, to kind of, how do we get that back? We can get it back. And again, you guys mentioned all the good things. knowing your people, communicate, constantly informing, because, informing, keeping your soldiers informed, your airmen informed, it goes a long way. The morale goes up, and motivate and so forth, and be approachable. When you're approachable, your soldier will come to you, will let you know that there's something bothering them. And of course, as Captain Wika, you got to be a good listener. That's one of the characteristics of being a good counselor, good leader. You got to be able to listen. Listen with the intent of wanting to help, or really find out what is bothering, what issue does my soldier have, and to formulate an answer or solution to their concern, rather than yelling at them, hey, get out of here, do push-ups, beat your face, and all those good things. So that's not going to build trust when you do those things. So thanks for your comment. Any alibis on trust before we move on?
I think this is through deployment. That's where I met Sally. Is your deployment. Your priorities are different when you're deployed as opposed to here in garrison, right? Your priorities with your team. I can honestly say that being deployed with fellow Samoans, we were constantly networking for help. So if there was a supply need, there was somebody in that team that had supplies. S1, HR, we were all together helping out each other. And that's one of the great things about being deployed. Although it's in an environment where nobody wants to be, however, that's where the team, the relationship is established, and it's a foundation there that as we go through the military, you're constantly seeing each other and being reminded of how those relationships are formed and how they solidify over time, and it helping out each other,
Yeah. So one of the, I think even our viewers mentioned a lot about the knowing your people, knowing your soldiers, but I guess, so the question is knowing your people enough? Is knowing your people good enough, for them to earn to earn your trust?
I think knowing your people is a start.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a foundation of where you can travel, and as you draw your map on how to cater to each soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, not to cater to each of them, but know what their different strengths and weaknesses, and how to, to become that team by using everybody else's strengths. I think that's one thing that I can say for, it's a start, but it can be built upon, and can be strengthened through everybody's help.
Yeah. No, it's good, and that's what I was trying to bring that out. And thanks for your response there, because knowing your people is not good enough. You got knowing, and then of course having a plan. Again, I think that's part of the team. The earning that trust is about knowing about them, their likes, dislike, what's affecting them, family problems, family issues. It will allow you, to take care of them accordingly. And then when they show, I think somebody mentioned, spend time. When you spend that time to show them that you really care, that's how you earn their trust. Is when you show, is what you do with the people. That's why I keep going back to that. Is what you do with your people earns their trust, or you lose their trust.
Yeah, Sergeant Major, I also think that.
Sorry, I keep going away. I have to cook for the family.
Don't go away. You can listen in.
No worries, Tina. I think in addition to that, Sergeant Major, with building trust, you have to be honest. You have to be genuine.
Sincere, yes.
Yes, sincere. Soldiers, just people in general, can tell when you're being genuine and when you're just lying straight to their face. So that attribute about being honest and being genuine really goes a long ways, because then they truly know that you care about their situation and that you're willing to work with them through their problems. And then, that you start building that relationship, and then you become reliable, you're credible, and you're being that go-to leader that soldiers want to come to, and
Sure.
and reach out for help.
Oh, thanks, sir. Okay.
So the next part of this question, second part of this question is that what are you doing to currently rebuild or maintain trust in your organization?
So I can go ahead and open with that. As a new commander and in a brand new company, one of the things I'm trying to do is counselings. So I'm sitting down with all my subordinate leaders and just establishing a baseline of what my expectations are, and what my priorities are, and what the areas of focus should be as we progress together within the company throughout our training events. And then the other piece, just the training piece, like how you guys were saying, to make sure that you're down with your troopers, or you're down there with your soldiers, rolling around in the dirt. One of the things that you have to do as in an airborne unit, obviously, is jump out of airplanes. And part of that, being a leader in an airborne unit, you have to go to JM. That's the Jump Master course, and it's a grueling course. It's physically and mentally demanding, but it shows your paratroopers, it shows your soldiers that, one, you're competent, you understand the equipment, you understand the capabilities of the aircraft, whether it's Army or Air Force, and that you're confident in exiting an aircraft, and that you can lead from the front and be that number one jumper. Not always, but if you can be that number one jumper, and you can exit the aircraft with your paratroopers. I think that's how, at least from my perspective, that's what I'm doing currently. And then when we conduct those future training events, you're there at the front. And what I mean by being at the front, you're at the points of friction. The leaders are placed at the point of friction for a reason, and that's to solve those day-to-day problems that always come up, whether it's hey, someone didn't deliver chow to your troopers, like, where's chow? Or hey, vehicle just broke down in your convoy, what are you doing? So it's placing leaders at the point of friction. It's being with them during the training events, and being able to provide that constructive feedback as you're going through whatever events that you have via whatever exercise you're conducting. So.
Cool. Oh, thanks, sir. Okay.
The captain brought up a great point as far as counseling. I'm gonna ask Saleh and Sergeant Major Vimoto, do you think that counseling is always a negative connotation in the Army?
Counseling? Well,
Yeah.
somebody mentioned counseling earlier, that counseling will always. I mean, well, we got to look at what are the purpose, what are the reasons for counseling, right? So that's what you got to look back at that. We counsel for a new soldier in the organization, right? So you do integration counseling, right? You do then there's event counseling. Hey, you just got promoted today,
Yeah.
And then of course there are times when when he does something bad, and of course you got to counsel him, So I mean, it's not a bad connotation. I think it's part of accountability that Captain Kawika mentioned earlier. I think that's another failure. Hold on, let me
why
finish.
I asked that question.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked that question, because a lot of soldiers associate counseling with something negative, and this is I'm telling you this because a lot of soldiers' perception is that, and that goes back to the basics. Is a brown paper bag, lunch with all NCODP, if we have to, so that way to elaborate more on counseling. Counseling can be accountability too, as we all mentioned, right? It can be something, to move ahead as far as promotion and all that. But I think some of the younger soldiers are constantly in their mind process, there's a counseling coming up. I did something bad. Because we're constantly we're failing at that.
Yeah.
We're counting when soldiers do bad things instead of soldiers doing good things.
That's right.
I've
Well,
seen it happen.
yeah,
I've
and
seen it happen
yeah,
because
yeah.
I've seen it happen because you look at a counseling soldier's packet, a soldier's counseling packet. Guess what? It's
Yeah,
nothing but just the first, and then go back to nothing but negative, negative, negative. Nothing
yeah.
good in there. So
Well,
I think that's the reason why I brought it up.
yeah. No, you got a good point. So here's the thing. A good example. When I was a battalion sergeant major, this company trying to, give this kid a field grade R15, right? The field grade R15. I said, well, what's the problem? Well, this guy's constantly late for formation. He's been warned, he's been counseled on it, right? So I said, well, what kind of soldier is he? He said, oh, so I made this guy, blah, blah, blah. So I said, well, let me see his counseling pack. When I look at the counseling packet, he's got 5 counseling in there, all negative, right? If this guy, if all these are negative, why is he still in the army? I mean, this guy cannot do anything right. Squad leader, what you tell me? He said, this is a platoon sergeant now. I said, as a squad leader, what do you think? I mean, what kind of soldier is this guy? So major, he's a good soldier. He's the okay. If he's good, how come I always see negative stuff? Again, it goes back to the level, the leadership that we have nowadays. For most of you guys probably don't know, but we promote people too early. Too soon. During 9/11, we promote people so fast. You go to combat, oh, this guy's going to be E5, before the deployment ends. All because, hey, this guy shoot well. He hit a couple of targets. Oh, this guy's the best. Let's promote him. But then we promote him because of one incident. But again, when it comes to what really matters of leading soldier, counseling soldier, we lack in those areas. So that's why I say, and those are the same leaders. They only counsel when the soldier does something wrong. But when the soldier does something right, oh yeah, this guy is always, he's always quick to help. He's always there when they ask for, hey, I need 10 volunteers for the motor pool or for shoot shakeout. He's the first one to raise his hand. He done something good, but the leader only counsel again. So it's not always a soldier as a leader as well. And Tina, you mentioned a good point. This is part of NCODP or LPD because even officers needs to be aware of that. Because this is not just enlisted that needs to be counseled. Even officer also needs a counsel, but it goes it's both ways. But we should not counsel only when somebody does something wrong. You also should counsel them when they did something right. Because that raises morale. That makes it, soldier motivate him to continue to do what he was doing. So, but when somebody every time he does something wrong, he's late for formation and he's put on paper, and then that's it. Well, I'm going to lose my motivation too. I mean, I don't want to be in this unit because all they do is, so that's why it's important. Yes, go back to Tina's question. We should always counsel whether counsel is not a bad thing. All counseling is, we got to go back and revisit what's the purpose of counseling and why, we're counseling. So I think that's important for leaders and to inform their soldiers. Soldiers are complaining, and that means they don't know, and it's a leader's responsibility to inform and educate. Okay. Well, thanks, sir, for your comment there. Any other comment on that trust?
Oh man! All right, so
is it too much for the Air Force, Orlando? I mean, stuff here now,
It's very long-winded.
I guess.
I'm just kidding. I mean, just a little bit about that counseling session.
Yes.
I've had that question asked many times, and it's like, no, this is not a negative counseling session. This is just feedback, positive feedback for you. And like once you give a negative counseling session, it usually comes with a positive feedback. You need positive feedback in order for them, like, hey, you're late for formation, don't do that again. All right, next day, all right, LOC, LOR, or whatever it has to be. What were we talking about on the main part? Trust, right?
Yes.
I don't think as far as trust, the meaning of sergeant means servant leadership, right? And it's our duty to, as NCOs, senior NCOs, is to, lead by example. Be there for each and every one of our troops. And that's all I got for that topic.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Orlando. Okay. Vale, Sally, we're ready to move on?
Yeah, we're ready to move on, but that was a good comment. Like he highlighted servant leadership, something that you kind of mentioned on in the other show. So
Oh yes,
that was a pretty good highlight.
yeah. Oh, that's good. Thanks, Orlando. Yeah, so let's move on. I mean, we can spend another hours, just talk about these, but we're trying to move along for sakes. I know Tina's got to cook dinner, and so on. So
You just
we
starved.
we Samoans like to eat late, at midnight, so you know how it is. So all right, let's move on. So the fourth point that we want to talk about here is a cohesive team. So this is a chronological order there. We talked about trust already. Now we got to talk about cohesive team. Again, some of you guys allude to in your comments. When we deploy, we're so tight. We got a cohesive team, downrange, and now for all of a sudden we come back. What happened to that team? So I guess the question for all of you guys then is there a difference between trust and building that cohesive team? What are your thoughts?
I think trust it ties into cohesiveness, and I really like that word, cohesiveness, just because what it means to a group of people, a team that you're trying to build, and what that means to me in a cohesive team is not just that everyone works really well together, but everyone is chipping in. Everyone is value added in your team, and um, you're listening to what each individual's role, whatever that duty and responsibility is. You're accepting their feedback and you're applying it to improve the event or improve the organization, or whatever you're working towards when it comes to a cohesive team. And I think when you're able to show that as a leader, um, it shows that you're a team player. And I think you will see more productivity and a higher level of success when you have a cohesive team. Again, it just goes back to reliability. It goes back to being dependable, and that each individual has their duty and responsibility. They know what they're going to do, and they know how they're going to accomplish it, and they're able to provide that constructive feedback, whether it's pushing back and saying, no sir, that's not how we do things, or no sir, that's the wrong way, we need to do it this way. As a leader, you're saying, okay, no, I totally understand. Let's make the change. You're moving forward because you know that what they have to say is not only genuine, most likely accurate, and
Yeah.
definitely going to listen to that feedback to heart. Um, and again, you're looking at improving the organization, not highlighting yourself as an individual. You're highlighting the team, and so yeah, I think that's kind of what I was thinking when it came to a cohesive team.
Yeah. Well, for the other one answer, it's just I'm looking as I listen to our captain, how he's got a good response. I mean, he been on both sides, been in the enlisted side, seeing that side as well. Grew up in enlisted rank now. As an officer side, kind of he's seeing from both angles here. So that's pretty good. Good observation as well. Go ahead, Tina. Sorry.
Highlighting success is very important team wise. A team is a group of people that come together for a mission, and once the team is recognized, ensure to exemplify them, and make sure they're known for their efforts and their time as far as completing the mission. I know recently here in JBLM there are S1 competitions, and luckily we became the number one here in JBLM all across the HR as far as HR metrics. And what I try to do is make all the soldiers feel important, because without them, we wouldn't have accomplished this mission. So I'm saying that because the soldiers should know, and they should be patted on the back, and make, the leaders should mean when they say, because without them, they wouldn't be a number one. So therefore, celebrating accomplishments as a team, being part of a go-getter team, so that way they can associate that win with their individual work. Because sometimes we tend to forget that these are soldiers, that they're the ones who did the job. We're just directing and telling them this, and that. But their efforts and hard work is what should be celebrated together as a team, and recognizing them when that time comes.
So what do you do, Tina? You take a cake to work to celebrate?
Oh yes, it's a lunch. Of course, it's a lunch on San
A
Potassium.
lunch on you? Oh, that's
Yes.
good. Yeah.
And not only that, you can camaraderie strengthens, and of course you can hear feedback
Yeah.
about you, whether you like it or not. It's coming.
There you go.
I think that's one of my first as a Buck E5 in my NCOIC. We were downrange. We sat down, and I think the soldiers went and talked to this NCOIC about me. So we all sat down. It was a dinner at Iraq, pizza, and of course, coffee bean. You know that, Saleh. We were all sitting around, and the NCOIC asked the soldiers, so what's going on? How can we improve? I was, as an individual, I was like, oh my God, am I that person? Am I an evil person? In my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, no, hell no, this is not me. But at the same time, absorbing what they're telling me, even though my ego was hurt. But I was able to hear their perspective as a soldier for me. So in light to the end of the tunnel, I've improved that much as a leader, and I take what I can receive from them, so that way I can improve myself. But over time, it gets better to receive constructive criticism.
Yeah. Well, we all learned. Yes.
Yeah.
We all learned. So that's good. Go ahead, Orlando. I know you got some good Air Force stuff over here.
Yeah, there's cohesiveness and team building. There's always a certain level of cohesiveness as far as compared to team building, right? So the more trust you gain, the more cohesive your team will be. And as far as a cohesive team, you can work as a cohesive team, but sometimes you don't always have that trust, amongst the team. And that goes as far as, hey, can I trust you on my team? Yes, I can trust you. We'll be more cohesive. Hey, we're a cohesive team. Can I trust you to do an aircraft inspection the right way without cutting corners? Right? That leads into like true qualifications, like stuff like that. The things that I can trust you to do well, to have a cohesive team.
Oh, that's good. I like what you brought out there, Orlando. So based on what you just said, there's this distinction, there's a difference between the trust and the cohesiveness. So from all your comments, so cohesiveness is just the ability of people to work together to accomplish a mission, right? And then that trust there is built over time based on, that's why if you look at our structure, our conversation, we kind of put trust first. We talk about trust first, because without that trust, that cohesive team may not gel. That gelling there comes, but when people trust each other and they're able to work together as a team. But to Orlando's point, there are times where you can still work a cohesive team. Does not mean that they trust you. They have their full trust. They trust you to an extent that you will take care of them. But then there's another kind of trust, I call, there's a general trust and there's a special trust. So that cohesiveness as a team, that's a general trust. They trust that you got my left flank and you got my right flank. You're not going to shoot me. Your weapons are pointing down range. We're going to be okay. And then we're going to move as a fire team, as a whole, and accomplish a mission. That's a general trust. But then the special trust, what they will, I'll talk to you guys about it later. That takes time, fostering, and of course, spending time with your troops to actually learn to earn that special trust. I think Tina or somebody mentioned earlier, that trust is earned, that special trust is earned when soldier comes to you with a personal problem that they don't normally talk to anybody about it. That's when you've earned that special trust. Okay. All right. I think we've answered both, that building the team, the trust, because the second question, I think you guys already answered, what are you doing in your organization to build that cohesive team? But I think you guys kind of touch upon that, during our conversation. So we'll just move on for the sake of time. Okay.
So we're on number 4, Isaiah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with leader development, that's task number 4. So what is leader development to you, and what do you see lacking in the garrison environment? From your many experiences, what have you seen work in the past, and would do it again to improve leader development in your organization? So the first part of the question would be, what is leader development to you, and what do you see lacking in the garrison environment?
I think it's just time, making time for training.
Mhm.
That's just me, because often we're so tasked out that the importance of training, going down to the basics. NCODP, as I mentioned,
Right.
it can be as simple as how to counsel soldiers.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned, Sergeant Major Vivato, some other things that can happen when a soldier gets a DUI. Those are some of the things. If we have to go down to the basics, that is the basic.
Mhm.
Knowing what to do when that situation arises is sometimes it can be just 4 NCOs sitting down and talking about some of those things. It can be in a big group as well. I think leader development is critical, not only for as we go through missions and stuff like that, and to keep abreast to what's going on as far as military. So it's key. Just like an educator, I myself was an educator. You have to do it at that plan every week. What you're planning to teach next week, and sometimes you have to relate it to what's going on in the world, like right now. So that's taking it down to the basics. It's going to do that NCODP. Thanks.
Good. Yeah. Good point, Tina.
Yeah, development on my couple aspects comes to being an intelligence professional, ensuring that your soldiers are properly trained and proficient in their analytical job fields. With this, with your NCOs, it's just taking the time out of the week to ensure that they're being coached and mentored on the areas that they might have weaknesses in, or that they're lacking in a certain intelligence field. So that goes back to like knowing your soldiers and knowing their strengths and weaknesses. We also do leadership professional development, LPD series, weekly and monthly. So what that looks like is at the company level, you're looking at maybe the arms run, and just ensuring that additional duty for that lieutenant or NCO that is tasked with it understands what the scope of responsibilities are, and what going down the checklist and ensuring they know what they're doing, to make sure that they're meeting the standard for the squadron and the brigade. And then taking that self-assessment of what you're lacking individually, and asking for help, because that's also part of development, is understanding your own weaknesses and being able to reach out to those mentors or your peers, and finding out what that answer is, and finding out how to better develop yourself or develop the unit, company, organization that you're working for. And what Tina was saying too, like NCO time to the NCO PD, making you just got to afford that time or put it on the calendar. During your training meeting, identify those, not necessarily white space. I don't think we like to say white space in the Army.
Don't say that too loud.
Yeah, right. You're identifying those times where you can sit down and go over certain topics, whether it's your specific technical skill or whether it's just individual soldier skills or the tasks that you get from hire, and making sure that everyone understands what's going on, everyone's on the same page, and that you're able to reach success. You're able to accomplish that task or mission. So.
Nice. Good. Well put, sir.
Leader development to me. Leader development to me is consistently learning. Even from when I was a young airman, my primary job for myself and my supervisor looking down to me was to constantly learn everything about the Air Force and everything about my job. And as an NCO, you get into the supervisory, the leading portion of being a supervisor. But even though you're still constantly learning, you're going through these classes, you're taking these CBTs, you're talking to your E9, your E8s, and you're constantly learning. And while you're constantly learning, the airmen, the soldiers looking up to you are also learning from your acts. So it's always good to lead by example and learn at the same time. And
Okay. Well, those are all good points. Some great comments from our viewers. I think who was that? Sarepa. So leader development is not just a professional aspect. The military as a whole tend to disregard the personal aspect. We deal with this daily. A high-speed individual with potential to be great, but with personal issues that affects him or her emotionally and mentally is a walking bomb waiting to explode. So again, I think that's kind of holds true for just about every MOS in the military. You promote some of these guys because this guy's squared away and so on. But we're not knowing there's a human aspect that everybody there that we kind of leader not so much neglect but not aware of that could cause issues that come up later and be a disrupt to the organization. No, but I appreciate all your comments here. But I think that was the development right there, the leader development. You guys already talked about the LPD, NCODP. You guys talk about NCOESs. What about and also you guys allude to learning. That's one thing that I remember when I first came in the Army. We always encourage take classes, take college courses, take those. What do you call those classes you take? You apply. Correspondence courses. There you go. It's been a while. So those correspondence courses. Sometimes you max out all the correspondence courses, but then take college courses while you're. Nowadays you got the tuition assistance and all that stuff. And you can just you pretty much get a degree before you leave the organization if you have the time. Or if you make the time. So Orlando hit a good point as learning, and it's not always as military stuff as our viewers allude to. You got to take care of yourself too, and the part of the learning is learning other things outside the military. Because when the officers, I really admire by the officers. They have their reading program. Read a book. It's a designated book every week or once a month. The officers got to read and write a book report. That stimulates the mind and also gives some ideas and for future. While they're in command or whether they're leaders, using examples of others. Gone before them. So learning. But I think one of the things that I don't know, are we still doing sergeant's time nowadays? Or it's just a thing on the calendar that we never execute?
I think it's such a thing on the calendar sometimes.
Yeah. So, but I tell you, what a great way to develop leaders. I mean, sergeant's time back, this is an opportunity for a young sergeant or a platoon sergeant, depending on what the task you're working on that week, to develop their own soldiers, to teach, mentor the soldiers on tasks they have at hand, whether it be battle drills, it could be CTT stuff, or it could be anything, that deals with a garrison environment, So, but those are missed opportunities if we're not executing those things. So, but yeah, development. What about this? So, one of the things I really enjoy doing is what I call, uh, the chaplains call it, foxhole ministry, where you walk around and just chat with the soldiers, visit your troops, But Moto calls it, kind of walk and talk. Let's walk and talk. Or sometime, some folks only see me and walk up in the motor pool and check on them, chat. It's development. You're talking to these young soldiers and see what they're doing, and you offer suggestions, idea, or you kind of like a one-on-one. I think that's one that's missing nowadays, because it seems like we only do counseling at the end of the month. And that's just a catch up. Oh, hey, we gotta get this done by the end of the month. And that's how we end up with sloppy counseling statements and so forth. But that should not prevent the leaders from going out and, whether they're cleaning weapons in a company area or whether they're doing air beautification. What a great opportunity for leaders to mentor, That's development. You're developing somebody just by, it doesn't require a classroom or PowerPoint slide to develop somebody. It's just you taking the time, spend some time and expound some of that wisdom and knowledge, experience, and then you move on out. That's development. So, but there's many ways, but I appreciate your thoughts. I mean, and I think that's one of the things one of the lost art that we need to get back to. One of the basics that we need to get back to, is the developing our leaders, because why? At some point, you guys you leave the military, and then you got to make sure your replacement is trained and ready to carry the torch, ready to move on and carry our our Army and our Air Force mission. Okay. Is that all the question you have, Sally, or you have?
No, I just want to acknowledge and recognize one officer that made an impact in my leadership. I don't know, it's a Lieutenant Colonel Kellogg. He's in the AG Corps, and I will never forget. He had pulled out a book, and some of you may know it. It's John Maxwell. And that was the first time I've ever opened one of his books, and now I've never stopped reading them. So it has profoundly impacted my leadership, and has opened my eyes to how leadership is and how we can impact young lives. Us. It's amazing that he had opened a book and say, read a passage and tell me what leadership is about just by reading that. That has opened doors for me and has opened my mind, because he has developed me as a leader, to go out and read other articles. I go to school, but the more information that I received from this Lieutenant Colonel Kellogg, has made an impact in my life as a leadership. And I'm thankful for those leaders like that. Hadn't he done that, I probably would be reading other books. But now leadership is what I look into, and holding a master's in business administration, that's something that I want to move forward as far as leadership, though, in breaking out in that way, and to become, just reading information about it. And I'm thankful for him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good. Well, thank you there.
Yep. Yeah. I think Tina contributes to the next question that's coming up too, with the reading. But just to follow on that task number 4 for leader development is, what have you seen work in the past and would do again to improve leader development in your organization?
I have so when we're used together for lunch and you're just having an open dialogue and open discussion about a certain topic, that maybe during your time about, throughout the month that you've gone and just observed your leaders, and you found that, finances that a lot of the soldiers didn't know about the programs that are available to you on post and throughout the Army, like AER. I think that that there, just brings together what you're trying to say, and making sure that not only you are learning from them, but they are learning from you, in just an open environment where everybody can just throw in their thoughts and just have that dialogue between leaders.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah,
What? Go ahead.
it's a reciprocal effect, of development. It goes both ways, leader and soldier, vice versa, because our minds are currently ever so evolving every day by the things we read and what we see, So, um, what I often tell my soldiers is, sometimes a bad day can be from a news, from family that somebody passed or something like that. However, we cannot control that, But trying to be positive, through reciprocating that positivity within the team, you know. It's important because once there's a bad toxic apple, everything is going to be rotten.
Mm.
So trying to control that, is critical for the movement and forward of the team,
Mm.
and developing and knowing that, sometimes we're not as the best thing as cheese out there, but the important thing is we're putting in the effort to train and mold soldiers in a positive way through, development.
Nice.
From my experience, I've seen. I feel like we, as NCO, especially the airmen, we need more feedback. We need more feedback from our supervisors, and we can go. Like, I know a few guys who've gone, so many years, 10, 15, almost to retirement, who've never gotten like any feedback session from their supervisors. Another thing that probably could work that I've seen that our squadron and our units have done is, burger burns. We've had commanders gold days, and like gold days are usually what happens when we've completed so many sorties within a month or within a quarter, and then a commander will issue us a gold day or a day off on Friday. And usually it's either you just go home and relax, prepare mentally, or you can just come to work and just kind of hang out, or you can guys go out to eat, have a little outing, and so forth. I know what works great for me is going on Air Force TDYs, and and it's a great experience. Like for me, that's the best thing about my job is going TDYs. Getting to hang out with the air crew, with the pilot, co-pilot, with the boomer, and getting to teach my assistants how to become a better, essentially a better airman, better flying crew chief, and that's what bonds between in the maintenance aircraft aviation world. That's what bonds aviation, officers, boomers, ops, and maintenance is when we go TDY together and have a great time. We get to know each other, and we just hang out.
Yeah, so. That's good. I appreciate all your comments. Those are all valid. I mean, really, leader development. It could be, and I tell you, sorry, I know the Air Assault School in Fort Bragg is kind of closed down, right? But of course, I'm the one that stood that school up when I was there, in compliance to the Chief of Staff of the Army's priority of leader development. So when I look at the Corps commander at the time and I say, sir, in compliance to the Chief of Staff of the Army's number one priority of leader development, I think having our own air assault school here in Fort Bragg, that will develop leaders. So he looked at me and goes, so why is that? And I first expound everybody been in Afghanistan know that you use all your air assault skills and Pathfinder skills up in those mountains of Afghanistan. So we developed, everything about air assault, from sling loading, from casualty evac, from establishing a HLZ, a standard non-standard HLZ, calling medevac, all assets or facets of air assault school is really utilizing your day-to-day mission in Afghanistan. So that's the start of the creation. And also air assault school is one of those schools that develops people, soldiers and leaders, both mentally and physically. But it's a skill set that they learn that makes them better leaders. So in turn, they turn around and teach their subordinates, about the skills that they learn. So that's how they develop each other. You guys mentioned all the great things of NCODP. Sergeant Stein's really I've seen happen in my time in the military. It was effective when it's planned accordingly and resourced properly. And also attended by folks that are supposed to be attending. One of the things that I saw as part of development was leader book. I know that the Army don't do leader book anymore, but I'm talking about every leader from team leader on up. Everybody has a leader book with all the information about their troops in there, their barracks, from their family, and not so much sensitive stuff, but really information from their PT card, So, and also as for me, when I was a platoon sergeant there, I make sure that all my leaders have prepared 2 classes, and inside that leader book, and of course I check them all. So when we sit down waiting for formation, we're waiting for a jump, waiting for the transportation, I get one of them. I say, okay, Sergeant so-and-so, okay, that teaches a class. So those are, remember those days, the hip pocket training or opportunity training, right? That's what those are. And again, what are we doing? We're developing those young leaders, really to prepare. Nobody in my platoon or company really unprepared because they have classes in there, So again, there's many ways to develop leaders. And again, one-on-one is just, I found it very effective. One-on-one with a leader, a soldier. I mean, many times in Afghanistan, when everybody's asleep on the fob, I'll be out there, on the tower with a soldier or two, in the night, with his binoculars, looking out in the darkness, just chat with him and learn about him and learn about his family. It's development. You talk about Army stuff, you talk about family, you get to know that person. So it kind of accomplishes all the, the mentorship, the trust that we've talked about. So, but there's many ways. But again, I applaud all of your efforts, all your comments. I mean, you guys are all spot on, and hopefully, and also thank our viewers for all their, your positive feedback. Those are all great comments, and hopefully that those who are not able to watch, hope you can kind of lead them to this one, and they will learn, and of course, and grow. And again, the whole purpose of this, not to poke anybody in the eye, but to share our experiences about what back to the basic is. So again, to recap all before we do a closure, it's important to, back to the basics, of doing things. But then again, we as leaders must identify what that basic is, or what those basics are, and then have a task, condition, standard, and get after it, and got to train, make sure that all you and your soldiers are on the same sheet of music. It's also important to know that there are some basics that we don't need to revisit, things that didn't work for us in the past, things that was just waste of soldiers' time, things like that, then we don't need to revisit those basics, So again, if you want to know what some of my basics, hey, we can just message me. I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff that we don't need to get back to. But basics important, as I know, and all of you guys, just like the Green Bay Packers, back to the basic fundamentals of everything, and that's what create well-oiled fighting machines and ready organization, ready to fight our nation's wars. Again, thank you guys for your participation tonight, our guests, and also thank our viewers for your time, for being loyal, and for your awesome comments. So,
thank
Saleh,
you for the leader development for me.
All right. So we're not done yet. Now we've got Saleh. Saleh, got any closing before I do a closing?
No, I just want to, echo, your, what you just said, and I thank you all for making the time, and thank you, Tina, because, I see you're busy in between, being a mom and everything, and being on the show. And Kavika, I just wish you all the best. And Orlando, thank you so much, and hope, pray for your safety every time you guys, take your flights.
So thank you guys for that. So Tina, we'll come over for dinner here shortly. But in closing, let's do our closing here now. So people, people are our military's number one priority. They're our greatest strength, our most valuable asset, and our most important weapon system. The senior leadership of the Army unveiled their top priorities for the Army, and they include people first, improving command climates, recruiting, modernization efforts, readiness, and more. The key to success for all these efforts is to revisit and master the basic fundamentals of understanding the human dimension. As General Chief Staff of the Army Ray Odierno says, the strength of our nation is our Army, or is our military. The strength of our Army is our soldiers. The strength of our soldiers is our families. And that's what makes us Army strong. And of course, until next time, thank you and God bless you. Good night.
God bless.
All right. Thanks, guys.